Alright, so for today's review, we're going to be taking a look at the Replicars Hitachi Zaxis 135US-7 in 1:50 scale. Now this, at the time of posting this video, this is a newer release from Replicars. And is a new addition, as you can see, to their Hitachi zero turn swing lineup. They currently have a couple 225s. They have the older model, and then they have the newer -7 model, which has been reviewed on the channel, and now they are adding the 135 to the lineup as well. So this, like I said, this is a new model, and we're going to start off by jumping into taking a look at the detail on this model. So we're going to first zoom in here, take a look at the undercarriage. Now the undercarriage is very nicely detailed. You do have some nice steps right here to get up to the operator's compartment, regardless of what side the machine is spun around on the tracks. And then you also have some tiny lift point graphics, which are nice. You do have some simulated rollers up top and on the bottom. They aren't functional, but they are nicely detailed. And then you do have a spring-loaded idler right there. So if for whatever reason you want to take the tracks on or off the model, you could possibly do that. And then you do have a nicely detailed sprocket back here with some nice bolt head detailing on there. Now this model being it being a small compact model, they tend to come with the little dozing blades on the front for, you can either use it for backfilling or just some general cleanup around site. And this one does have some nice detailing on the cutting edge. You got some nice bolt head detailing right there, just to kind of simulate where the cutting edges would bolt on to the blade. And it is a fairly simple blade function. It does have some plastic cylinders, so it is not going to be able to hold the model up and, you know, like above the, have the blade hold the model up, but it is nice to see that they did model that on the undercarriage, which is nice. And then you do have the nice link tracks instead of hook and loop tracks, which is always a plus. You never have to worry about these guys popping apart and falling into a million pieces. And then coming to the cab, you can see it is a very nicely detailed interior. Now, unlike some of the other Hitachi models from TMC, or some of the larger Replicars Hitachi models like the 300 or the 330, the cab door on this model does not open, so it is permanently closed. But like I said, that doesn't spare. They didn't spare any expense on the detail. You do have the Hitachi name on the back of the seats, and then you do have a fairly nicely detailed operator's cab, which is nice. Then you also have the Hitachi name up top, and then you also have a latch here. Now, the only metal handrail on this model is right here on the cab, and then you also have a little plastic antenna up here. Now, you just want to be careful when you're handling the model because you could accidentally break these off. I've seen it happen before, and I've done it before on a model similar to this where you're not looking where you're putting your hand and you accidentally snap the antenna off. So that's something you're going to want to look out for. And then coming to the front of the cab, you do have a nice windshield wiper. You have some, I believe these are supposed to be some simulated lights, but the surface isn't painted silver. And then while we are taking a look at the front of the model, you can see you have some nice hydraulic detailing right there that goes to your boom cylinders, which is nice. And then coming to the rear of the machine, you have a simulated latch right there. And then you have one of three cameras for around the machine. And then coming to the rear of the machine itself, you have a nice Hitachi logo right there. You can see you have your other rear view camera right there, and you also have a camera right there. And then you do have some nice graphics here, some nice warning graphics on the back of the counterweight, which do look nice. And then you also have a nice simulated latch right here. You can see some of the paintwork here. At least on my model, kind of wore off a little bit, or maybe it just wasn't applied very well at the factory to simulate some panels right there, or like a grill, but that's no big deal. And then you can see the Zaxis 135US decal right there, and then you can see you have a plastic handrail right here, so you are going to want to be careful with that, not to break it off. And then you do have 3 steps that lead up to the top of the car body, which is nice. And then you can see the top of the car body, you have some very nice detailing up there, some simulated anti-slip texture. And you also have a opening engine compartment. It can be a little bit tricky to get your finger down there to pop it open, but once you do get it open, it does reveal a fairly detailed engine, which is always a plus to have on a model. And it opens and closes fairly easily. Now, you do have some nice hydraulic rubber hoses that run to hydraulic lines that are part of the casting on the boom there. So there is that. You can see you got some more cast hydraulic lines right there, and that they do transition onto the top of the boom into some rubber hoses. Now, this being an Asian, or at least a Japanese market machine, they only put the decal on one side of the boom. So as you can see, this one doesn't have the Hitachi decal right here on this side. So I'm sure you could probably find some aftermarket Hitachi decals, excuse me, and you could probably apply them to this side of the boom, just kind of like the Kiowa Komatsu's, where they only have the Komatsu logo on the boom only on the one side. There's plenty of people out there that make some decals to put on the other side, and I'm sure someone will eventually come out with some decals to put on this boom right here. And now coming to the stick on the model, this does have auxiliary lines ran to it, and they also have some soft rubber lines running to them. So if you did want to put a different implement or a different attachment on this model and have run hydraulics to it, you definitely could do that without an issue. Now the bucket is held on by some little tiny screws and nuts. I believe a number 0. It's either a number 0 or a double 0. Phillips will take these off without any issue. Now the bucket on this model is it's a pretty simple casting for a Hitachi model. It almost looks very similar to the Linkbelt 145 bucket. It is pretty much the exact same size. I almost thought when I originally bought this model that the buckets were the same, but upon getting this model in person, the buckets do appear to be slightly different. So that is nice that they did design a bucket from this and not just used a leftover bucket or a leftover design for a bucket. So that is pretty much it for the detail on the model. Now we're going to go ahead and zoom out here and get to some of the functionality on this guy. So like most excavator models, your boom is going to raise and lower. Now with this being a reduced tail swing machine, you're going to have that super tight radius for your boom and stick to come in on the model to achieve working in a tight space. Now I say that this is a reduced radius machine because the front and rear of the machine do kind of stick out past the tracks on the model, whereas on a zero-turn swing machine, nothing would stick out past the tracks, so this is technically a zero-turn machine. But like most excavator models, this model does rotate at 360 degrees, and if you do want to fold this model down for transport or whatever, you are going to want to have the blade in the back. So that is how high the boom will go, and that is how low the boom will dig down to, which is nice. And then your stick's going to come in that far, and then it also goes out to about there. And then with the functionality for the bucket, your bucket goes out that far, and then it comes in to about there. So that is relatively a nice range of motion for the model. And like I said, it's been 360 degrees, and then your blade does move up and down. Just got to be careful with those plastic cylinders. Don't think that the blade's going to be able to hold the track frame up off the ground with those plastic cylinders. But that's really about it for the detail and functionality with this little guy. So this is a nice little model, like I said, from Replicars. I'm going to bring in the 145 Linkbelt model, which is about the same size machine. Mine's obviously slightly different than what you would buy at standard. But here's a nice little comparison between the two models. Both have opening engine compartments. I would say the hydraulic detailing is a little bit better on the 145 compared to the 135, whereas they have those kind of those soft plastic hydraulic lines that run down into the side of the boom instead of having them cast on the boom. So there is that. But other than that, the track, I would say the undercarriages do look quite, they do look like they are the same. I can't tell if they reused the undercarriage on this model or not. It does appear to be slightly different, but they do appear very similar. And this is what the rear of both of these machines is going to look like. I'll go ahead and turn that blade around. So that is what the rear of both the machines look like. And like I said, both of these models do have opening engine compartments, which is nice. And there's kind of a side-to-side comparison of them there. So we'll go ahead and take this 145 out because that's not what the review is. It was of this little 135 Hitachi. So overall, definitely highly recommend picking up this model if you are into Hitachi models or if you are looking for a nice 15 to 17 ton machine to add to your collection. Maybe you don't want to have a Cat 135, or you don't want to have a Cabelco or a link belt. You can get this little guy right here. Now, there's been quite a few questions on how to best pick up this model. I would say the best way to get your hands on one at a reasonable price would be to contact Replicars. That is how I purchased this model. The process is relatively super easy. You either contact them on their Instagram or their Facebook. You say, hey, I want to buy this model, and they're going to ask you for your email address, and they're going to ask you for some other information, and they'll send you on over a quote, and then you go from there if you want to buy it or if you don't want to buy it. So overall, I would say, buying from Replicars themselves was definitely a very, easy transaction, and I would most likely do it again. And this is a nicely detailed model from them. But with that being said, that's all I have for this review. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them down in that comment section below. And if you like scale models, or at least construction models, just as much as I do, please consider hitting that subscribe button if you want to see more models like this here in the future. I will say I do have quite a few more reviews coming. But with that being said, that's all I have for this review. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video to be uploaded.